إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد.
The second point I want to talk briefly about is the importance of Walaa and Baraa. What is it overall? How can we understand it? What's this thing they call Walaa and Baraa? Especially us young, you young, growing up in this country. What is this thing Walaa and Baraa? What is it? Well, how is it a main part of Laa Ilaaha Illallah? This topic really doesn't need a single verse or a single hadith to prove it. Not a single verse or hadith. The proof for this topic is Laa Ilaaha Illallah Muhammadur-Rasoolullah. Walaa and Baraa does not need a single letter of proof more than the word Laa Ilaaha Illallah Muhammadur-Rasoolullah. The Qurayšians who fought the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, alayhi, understood Walaa and Baraa from the mere word of Laa Ilaaha Illallah. They didn't need nothing else. They knew it from Laa Ilaaha Illallah. This matter was so clear to everyone. In earlier generations, they didn't need to write about it and explain it and elucidate and argue back and forth. It was clear. Walaa and Baraa was clear. It was not an issue needing an explanation or talk until those philosophers who gave their undeveloped minds precedent over the text of the Qur'an and the Hadith coming out, giving their input. That's when the explanation and the elucidations and what the Ulamaa meant. They are the ancestors of those who gabble today in what they don't know, thinking they know it all. I don't know nothing about football. I even several times, wallahi, put an effort to learn football. I couldn't. I don't know the details of it. That's even though I grew up here. Subhanallah, Allah blocked my mind from it for some reason. Even though I tried, because my nephew, may Allah protect him, and safeguard him, he's a professional player. And I never could learn this game. I do not know what they're doing when they're playing. There is one thing I do know for sure about that sport. When you join a football team and you cheer for the opposite team, what happens? In Mexico, people get hurt for matters like that in soccer. Why? It's embedded, it's natural, it's fitrah. You don't need to be told this. You're part of the team, you're a team player. You owe a duty of loyalty and alliance to your team. It's common sense when you join a team that you're part of that team. You don't cheer for the opposite team. You don't ever cheer for the opposite team. You don't even wish in your heart that they win. You're deceiving your team, even if it's in your heart. You can't take the coach or captain of the opposite team and hail him with praises and love and loyalty. You just can't do that. Or tell the coach of the opposite team a weakness that you see in your own team. Whether you're joking, whether you're serious, whether you didn't mean it, you don't do that. You don't do that. Let me take it further. When your own team makes mistakes, and that happens a lot in sports, they get angry, missed passes, lost plays. The teammates scream at each other. They yell at each other. Sometimes it gets out of hand where they push and shove. Sometimes it gets fully out of hand where the teammates of one team fight. That happens. That happens. My question is, do you go to the rival team or the rival team's coach or captain and say, my team members didn't pass the ball at the proper time, and complain to them? Do you go to the opposite team's coach or the captain or the players and tell them, come here, help me fight my own teammates, and massacre them and commit genocide with them? The core structure of gangs, street bums and gangs, bums in the streets and gangs and criminals, the core structure of gangs is Walaa and Baraa to that gang. In religious institute, all religions, the core matter of it is Walaa and Baraa. Nations, the core matter of the structure of that nation is Walaa and Baraa to that nation. If you look at nations and countries, the worst crime in a nation, in a country, is treason against that country and against the government. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to the security of that nation to have people commit treason. Treason is Walaa and Baraa to that country. Now, pay attention. If Walaa and Baraa is essential to a mere soccer league, a little soccer league, or a football team, if it's fundamental to the progress, continuation, and success of any nation, why is it so difficult for Muslims today to have Walaa and Baraa to Laa Ilaaha Illallah Muhammadur-Rasoolullah? That's Walaa and Baraa. It's fitrah. It's common sense. It's common sense. Merely Laa Ilaaha Illallah Muhammadur-Rasoolullah says Walaa and Baraa. You don't need none of the proofs that I mentioned to you. You don't need a single verse on that. But Allah revealed them all in the Hadith to emphasize the importance of this matter. Today the deluded munafiqeen want you to join the team of Laa Ilaaha Illallah, but they want you to cheer, to support, to clap, to aid, to abet everyone and everything but the team of Laa Ilaaha Illallah Muhammadur-Rasoolullah that you joined. This is an important topic, because this topic is the identity of a Muslim. Let me repeat. Walaa and Baraa is the identity of a Muslim. Walaa and Baraa is the selfhood of a Muslim. Without this topic fully embedded in your hearts, especially in non-Muslim lands, the grandparents and great-grandparents of today are given birth to future non-Muslim grandkids and great-grandkids. Whoa, what? Let me repeat that to you. Let me repeat that to you. Listen closely. Without true belief and understanding of Walaa and Baraa, for everyone, but more so for those in non-Muslim lands, for everyone, the grandparents and great-grandparents, us, we're going to have kids inshallah, and great-grandkids and great-grandkids, the grandparents and great-grandparents of today are given birth to future non-Muslim grandkids and great-grandkids. What do you mean? What do you mean? Let me tell you what I mean over here. Let me tell you this example, you understand it. A family I know very well, and I could even name the names. In 1920 or so, two brothers came to this country from Jordan. One of them settled, and one of them returned. One who returned, he didn't like it here, or didn't go well for him, he returned. The one of them stayed here. So now that one who stayed here, there's possibly 4 or 5 generations now, since it's the 1920s. The great-grandfather who returned to Jordan, his descendants overall are all Muslim. They all have the spirit of Islam. At the end of the day, you ask them, they'll tell you we're Muslim. Yes, some of them are astray, some of them are sinners, but inshallah they all have Tawheed and Laa Ilaaha Illallah in their hearts, and inshallah one day they'll come back to the true teachings. The brother who remained in this country and died here, and most of his first generation children I believe are all dead now. There's now 4 to 5 generations from that man. They grew up in a city, and there's so many of them, that a city in the United States is named after them. Do you know from the descendants of that man who remained in this country from the 1920s, there's not a single one who says, I'm a Muslim? I'm not saying that they neglected their salah so they're not Muslim. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you ask them, what's your religion? He's either Christian or Catholic or Buddhist or Hindu or atheist. A lot of them are atheists. This is something I know firsthand, with names and details. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them back to Tawheed and Islam. We gotta ask why. We spoke many times that non-Muslims can never be compelled to say La ilaha illallah. It's impossible. La ikraha fi ddin. Even when Islam is ruling a nation and there's non-Muslim living under it, it's impossible that we force or coerce anyone into Islam. Impossible. Even when the rulers of that country are by the solid Sharia, the ideal Sharia, the ideal Khilafah. They even get protection from Muslims, the utmost protection, while they're on their false belief. Non-Muslims get treated under Muslim rule better than, wallahi, better than they treat us when we're under their rule. Non-Muslims get treated under Muslim rule better than their own people treat them when they're under their own people's rule. That's when there's the ideal khilafah. But at the same time, and here's what I'm trying to get at, that treatment doesn't mean we approve or condone their false, tampered, made up belief. We treat, for example, Ahl al-Dhimma, those who live under Muslim rule, and you know they're weak and vulnerable because they're living under Muslim rule. A lot of Muslims are the popular and the strong ones. They live under Muslim rules. At times, the Muslims got to protect them. But we teach our kids and we put in our hearts that their faith is false faith. We embed it in our hearts, in our minds, in our kids' minds, that cross that they're wearing, if someone dies believing in it, they will be emblazoned in hell forever. You have to teach that. You have to know that. You have to solidly believe that. When you have Muslims that are taught that the faith have minor differences amongst them, that they downplay the difference in belief in shirk and tawheed. It's not a biggie. They say we're all going to heaven. Your religion, my religion, same God. We're all going to heaven, so nothing really matters. They say Jesus is the Son of God, Isa is the Son of God, we say He's the Messenger of God. It really means the same thing. When you get down to it, it's really a technical linguistic difference. When you boil it down, where all the Abrahamic religions and all the Qur'an said it, everyone's going to heaven. It's in the Qur'an. And they falsify this and tamper. The deviants also say explicitly or implicitly, anyone who mentions hell or anyone who's going to hell, that someone's going to hell, that's a radical extremist. Hell, Jahannam these days, without Walaa and Baraa, has become to many like an abandoned dwelling that no one enters. It's just there to be there. No one's going to hell. It's as if Allah, ma'adallah, created it in vain. That's basically what they're saying. Ma'adallah. Ta'ala Allah an dhalik uluwan kabir. What's the result of that distorted teaching? The first generation of Muslims without Walaa and Baraa will hold some ground to Laa Ilaaha Illallah. Possibly. Second generation, third generation possibly, may have the smell of Laa Ilaaha Illallah. The fourth, fifth, and ongoing will be atheists, Jews, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, Scientologists, whatever you want. They have it without Walaa and Baraa. That's all because of the deficiency in Walaa and Baraa. Because it's your religious identity. That's what it is. Walaa and Baraa is our religious uniqueness as Muslims. Walaa and Baraa is our personality. 15 years ago, I was at a lecture, and a famous lecturer gave a very popular talk that he always goes around giving about Islam's history. Early on, Muslims in this country, and early on masajid. He had a projector with pictures of old masajid. That particular lecture was about Muslims who came from overseas as slaves and those who embraced Islam in this country. And he had some real solid evidence of the existence of Islam very early on. Everyone was so happy to hear the masajid back in the 1800s, or even, I don't remember, before that or after that. And after the lecture, we sat down to eat. I said that those masajid are gone. But where are those communities of Muslims? Where are the Muslims? Where are the descendants of those Muslims that you've been talking about for the past hour and a half? I know and I understand that structures in masajid burn down, they fall, they deteriorate over time. But what masjid did the congregation transfer to? Where on earth are those people you're talking about? Where are their descendants? Those Muslims you were talking about in the 1800s, they're all barren, they didn't have no kids that we can see today? If they're barren, I can understand that. They didn't have kids, so that means there's no Muslim kids out of them that came. According to the numbers that he was talking about, for example, the overwhelming majority of African American are supposed to be Muslim. And there's more than that from other origins. Muslims should be way more than that. I want to know where they're at. It's impossible that they all were barren, they couldn't conceive kids. He said, that's a good question, I don't know. There should be studies done on that. I said, don't you think over the decades and the centuries, they were washed out of Islam? You don't really got, I'm going to save you some time. You don't got to do no studies. Don't you think they were washed out of time? No Walaa and Baraa embedded in their hearts? And look at this. If this was back in the days where there was merely no Walaa and Baraa due to ignorance, imagine how it is today and what your kids are going to turn out to be when it's not only ignorance in Walaa and Baraa, it's a full-blown war on the teachings of Laa Ilaaha Illallah and Walaa and Baraa. The bombshells fallen on Walaa and Baraa by those who claim to be of our own, claiming to be Muslim and dua and shuyukh, are more dangerous, more lethal than the bombshells that fall on the heads of the innocent brothers and sisters throughout the world. Wallah al-Azim. Wallah al-Azim, there's a war on Walaa and Baraa. Wallah al-Azim. Don't get me wrong. Enemies of Islam, they always had an issue with Islam. And they always had an issue with Walaa and Baraa. It's nothing new and it's nothing to be surprised about. But now the problem is with the munafiqeen of our ummah that claim to be followers of this ummah, who are spreading a contaminated form of Walaa and Baraa, a lethal dosage of Walaa and Baraa that's going to take you out of your Islam. Locally, my father was a founder of a local masjid. He took the responsibility of that masjid and he was at the core of changing it. It was built in the 30s. But my father, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a long life full of deeds, was a main person in charge of it in the 60s and the 70s, along with a sheikh from Yemen, who was one of the first graduates of the Islamic University in Medina and came here as a da'iyah. May Allah raise his rank to Firdaus. As I heard, he died recently. And he left me some books when I was a young boy to read. One of them was Kitab al-Tawheed. The upper floor of that masjid was a masjid. The bottom was a wedding hall where they have music and parties, and at times alcohol was served in it. My father and this imam went over the masjid and changed it to a masjid, upper and basement of it. I remember my father would go make salah and sit from Maghrib to Isha. And on a good Jum'ah, not on a good day, on a good Jum'ah, there would be 3 to 4 old men. And my father would be the youngest and I was the only kid. At times, I remember when they would sit in Maghrib and Isha and there was parties downstairs, the old man would go downstairs. Wallah, I remember. They would go downstairs and tell them to lower the music for 5 minutes so they can offer Maghrib or Isha. Wallahi, I remember it as a kid. The names and families of the founders of that masjid in the 30s, we know. I just want you to do one thing. Go do a study on what happened to most of their grandkids. Where are they? What happened to them? I'm not going to talk about it. It's hurtful to talk about it. But you're going to be surprised at what you're going to come at the results you're going to see. Do a study and come back and tell me what you find. I don't want to sit and make our precious moments of this Tawheed class storytelling ones. But this needs to be told so you can know what Walaa and Baraa is. To know the danger of having a deficiency in the belief in Walaa and Baraa. It must be said like it is by the Ulamaa, by the shuyukh, by the dua, by the Muslims. Why? To discharge our duty before our Lord and free ourselves from guilt before Allah when we meet Him.